everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's meetup. On today's agenda, Lindsay will be providing an overview of the new election maps and apps. And just as a reminder, we'll be recording this meeting and posting it on meetups.com shortly after the presentation. During the meetup, if you'd like to make comments or chat with other participants, feel free to use the chat window. However, if you'd like to submit a question for the team to answer, please submit them through the Q&A pod. With that said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Lindsay. I think you're muted, so you might need to unmute yourself. Lindsay?
I was double muted.
All right.
Okay. Let's try that again.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thanks, Heather. My name is Lindsay Thomas, and I work on the ArcGIS for local government and ArcGIS for state teams here at Esri. And my primary focus and my big passion is web applications and elections. So today, that's what we're going to talk about, elections. Specifically, the solutions that we provide based around elections. It's almost 2006. I know it's hard to believe, and it's going to bring us to a presidential election year here in the U.S. And we want to be prepared for the primaries, and we want to be prepared for the general election as well. Some of us are not stateside, and we know that you guys are preparing for elections as well, and these solutions will work for you too. So let's make it easier. Let's make it easier for citizens to find out where and who. Where do I find my polling place? Where do I put in my absentee ballot? And answer who. Who's winning the election currently? Who won in my local precinct or county? And who's representing me at that local, federal, or state level? And by making it easier for citizens to find answers to these 4 questions, we're also going to make it easier on ourselves who work in local and state election agencies. Whether you're in the county's clerk's office or helping tabulate election data, if you're involved in the election process, it's going to be a busy year. And we want to make that easier for you. So I'm going to pose you this question. Where do you want to be 1 year from now? November 2016. And so this is multiple choice, so I'll give you a second to look at the response. Just type in the chat window where you'd like to be in a year from now in regards to elections. And so I'm thinking most people are probably thinking B, right? They're thinking, I want to be sitting with my feet on the desk, don't let your manager see, and have those great election solutions stood up in my organization. You can see Alex from Nevada just said B too. It's popped up on my screen. Great, good to hear that. And so that's what we want to do. We want to help you focus on answering those 4 questions that election agencies get asked by voters. And we have 4 solutions that are going to help you do that. So the first 2 solutions are answering the where question. Where do I go to vote on election day? And where do I go drop off my ballot or vote early? And so that's getting people to the polls, providing directions to those polls from your home or your place of work, and getting you that voter information. The next 2 solutions we're going to talk about answer the who question. So who is winning or who has won? So that's the election results application. And the second who question is who's my elected official? So who's representing me at the local, state, federal, or provincial levels? So who's the incumbent? And after the election, hey, who do I need to call to make a change happen? And so those are the 4 solutions that we're going to talk about today. And what's really great about these solutions is they're all part of ArcGIS for local government and ArcGIS for state government. And what that means to you is these applications are fully supported. You can call Esri Support Services, and you can get help if you get stuck. They'll help you walk through this process. Also, there's no additional cost to this. You probably have ArcGIS already. You can just go ahead, download these applications from our solution site, and they're free and they're available today. So without further ado, I'm actually going to show you these apps and do a little bit of a technical deep dive. And so the first application is a brand new application. This is the early voting. It's configuration of ArcGIS Online as well as Web App Builder Developer Edition. This helps people who are participating in early voting get to the polls for Election Day. And so in the U.S., there's 33 states plus D.C. that participate in some form of early voting. Some people call that absentee ballots. Some people call that drop-off ballots or mail-in ballots. States like Colorado and Oregon only do mail-in voting. So it's quite popular, and this is a brand new application to address that need in the elections community. So I'm currently working in Naperville. I'm a citizen, and I'm really excited to vote. And I want to find the nearest voting location for myself. So I can go ahead and I can type in an address, or I know I'm just north, just by the river bend here. So I'm going to just click it at a point. And when I do that, I can see that there's 4 voting locations within 5 miles of me. So maybe I'm willing to drive 6 miles. I can increase that, and I can see I have a few more options. So I know when I look at this, I can see the distance it is from the location, and I know that I'm really close to the aquatic complex. So if I click on the aquatic complex, I can see all the information that I need to know in order to drop off my ballot or vote in person. So I can see the address, the details on how long the voting center is open, where the drop-off location is, and where I need to go if I have any questions. If I click on the Directions tab, I'm going to get a route on how to get there from where I work to the early voting location. And then also, if I want to, I can go ahead and click the print button and get those written directions as well as the map printed out. So that's the early voting location application. And that's a brand new application that we released last month, and it's available on the Resource Center now. The next application that I'm going to show you is election polling place. So this is your traditional election polling place application. So if I live in this precinct, I'm going to vote at this polling place. This application is also a configuration of ArcGIS Online and Web App Builder Developer Edition. And both of the early voting and election polling place applications are supported on smartphones, tablets, and desktop computers. So whether you're at home or on the run, you're able to find out this information. So I'm going to search for my home address here in Naperville and find out which precinct I belong to and where I need to go to vote on Election Day. So I did a quick search, and you can see that this is my precinct here, nice little lightning bolt shape. And you can see that I'm actually voting at the polling place just outside of my precinct. And 2, you can see the address, registration deadlines, operational hours, accessibility, and who I need to go to for questions on voting. And similarly, I can get directions on this application as well, and it's going to route me from my house to the poll. And if I'd like, I can go ahead and print directions. This application, Election Polling Places, has replaced our older version of this application that's been around for over 5 years. Hard to believe. And so this is a replacement, and it's available in the Resource Center now for download as well. So now that we've voted, the next application that we want to look at is, well, what's happening? Who did everybody else vote for? So the election results application can be used for election night reporting or to finalize election results. So after the canvassing has happened, you can see the kind of official results on this map. This is a configuration of ArcGIS for server or ArcGIS Online services with a custom JavaScript application that just has a config file. And so if I wanted to find out about who voted in my neighborhood or my precinct and who they voted for, so if I do a quick search for my address, I can see that for that election, we voted Republican. And as I kind of scroll across the bottom of the carousel here, I can see who was elected in the Senate, in Congress, as well as at the county level. And then finally, I can see voter turnout. So I can see that 82% of the people in my precinct voted, which is a great, pretty good voter turnout. With this application also comes a script that can run, and that script helps you get your tabular election data into your kind of map system, into this application. So you've got a script that can run in the background and kind of do updates to support election night reporting. This application is also supported on smartphone, tablets, and desktop as well. And just a I'm going to show you a sneak peek later. Next month, we're actually going to do a refresh of this app, and it's going to be replaced, and it'll have kind of a similar look and feel that you saw in the early voting and election polling places app previously. I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you that a little bit later. And so the next application is My Local Representatives. So after the election's over, maybe you want to go see how things have changed and who's representing you, or maybe before you're voting, you want to go see who's actually the incumbent and who's been representing you for the last number of years. A lot of us know these things, but sometimes you forget. So you can go ahead and search, and it's going to show me who is looking after me at the city council level, county commission, state House and state Senate, as well as Congress and the U.S. Senate. This is a really simple application that uses ArcGIS Online, so it's leveraging publishing a service, a web map, and then we're using actually a hosted application, so everything's done in online. It's taking advantage of the info lookup application. And this is replacing some of the functionality that previously existed in the older election polling place application. We had some feedback from the user community, and we took that and decided to separate those two applications. And so those are the 4 apps that we have to support the election solution. Again, fully supported and available today on the Resource Center, or on the solution site. And with that, I'm going to ask Heather to open it up to questions. And I saw a lot of action popping up on my screen, so hopefully we have some good ones.
Yes, Claire has a couple questions. What does it mean for the persons configuring the apps? What are they in ArcGIS Online, web app builder applications? She was kind of confused about that.
Okay, yeah. So early voting and elections polling place are using Web App Builder Developer Edition. So that's different than Web App Builder that's hosted within ArcGIS Online. So basically you would, and I'm going to go into this a little bit later in a deeper dive, so I'll kind of explain how that works. But we have Web App Builder and the widgets that support early voting and election polling place are custom widgets that we've built as part of the solution, and you can just pull that into your developer edition and take advantage of those.
And then she also had a question regarding migrating from the current election polling place app to the new one. She asked if this will be covered at all.
So I wasn't going to get into that too much today, but it's pretty straightforward. Scott said he did it in a few minutes. So the old election polling place application had 2 tables and a feature class. What we are doing now with the election polling place application is we have a polygon and a point layer that are related to each other, and using the precinct ID as the foreign and primary key to relate that information to each other. So basically, we're just simplifying the schema. So we've just taken out that kind of lookup table that was sitting in between those two feature classes previously, and we've put them all together.
Okay. I think Scott's been answering a few questions.
Any that you want me to go ahead?
Well, John had, well, I guess Scott's been answering them through the chat window. If you'd like to continue.
Yeah, sure. So, lost my train of thought there for a second. Okay, so let me show you how that's going to work, how these apps are going to work. Because Web App Builder, because early voting and election polling place are new applications, I'm going to dive into those. And in December, election results is also going to be using that same pattern. I'm going to jump in and show you how to set up and configure early voting. And in doing that, hopefully I'm showing you how to do that for election polling place as well as election results, the December version too. So when you start off, where do you start? Well, I've talked about going to the solution site. So it's solutions.arcgis.com. Under local government or state government, we've got different configurations. And under elections, you'll see all the maps and apps that we offer based around elections. And so if you come here into early voting centers and you click on Learn More, or search for early voting ArcGIS, it'll come up as well in your search browser. And you're going to come to the solution site, and you'll get some overview and some good documentation, and as well you'll see Getting Started, and this will step you through the process of standing up the application. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to read the help to you, but today I'm going to kind of quickly go through the configuration process and show you how to configure early voting. So if you go ahead and download this application and download that onto your machine, the next thing you're going to want to do is look at the requirements. So these are the very detailed requirements, but the bare minimum of what you need is Web App Builder for ArcGIS Developer Edition and an ArcGIS Online subscription. You can use Server as well, but you will need Online and you will need Web App Builder Developer Edition and a local web server because we're using the Developer Edition. This application will have to be deployed on a local web server. And so let me show you when you actually download the application what you're going to get. So you're going to get a folder. It's going to say early voting LG. It's usually a zip file. I've unzipped it to save some time. And you're going to get two folders and a short link. And the short link is just going to take you back to the help that I showed just a minute ago. And that's where you're going to go through that process of standing up the application. The application folder, kind of alluding to Claire's question, contains a theme and a widget that supports early voting. So if you remember when I searched in early voting and I had that slider, that widget is actually called Near Me, and we've just branded that as early voting. The flat theme is a minimized theme, so that's just the style of what Web App Builder is going to look like, and that's something we provide as well. The Maps and Apps geodatabase is going to provide our sample data with Naperville as well as an MXD with some great cartography. Thanks to Heather. Heather's a cartographer. That's her other job. So if we go to ArcMap, I've actually already opened up early voting locations. You can see it's just a point feature class. So when you look at the data source, it's just a point feature class. And if we open up the attributes, you can see we've actually, we thought about what are the attributes that need to happen for early voting. So you can see early voting locations. So what's the name of the building? That's something citizens can relate to. The address, so the exact postal address or the physical address of how to get there. The hours of operation, whether or not the site has voter services. So oftentimes in different counties and different states, you can vote in person or drop off your ballot at the clerk's office or in the county, and there's voter services there as well. So if you want to register and vote all in one, sometimes you can do that for early voting. An attribute to support the ballot Dropbox location, as well as the contact information if you have any questions. So having really good data to support this application really is what brings the application to life. So we always say stand up the application with a neighborhood data to do it first and kind of understand the process. But I'm sure some of you are asking, well, I don't have early voting locations. Well, it's really easy actually to get those locations. You could stand up a simple feature service from the local ArcGIS for local government service catalog, and you could turn that into an editing map and set application on ArcGIS Online, set it up, and have a clerk or somebody else in your election agency collect that information and edit it, thus populating your service. The other option is maybe someone has a spreadsheet somewhere with early voting locations. And you can actually use ArcGIS Online to geocode those services and then turn those geocoded services into a feature service. Thus, your data collection is done. In most cases, for early voting locations, unless you're in a state that only does early voting, you're probably only going to have one or two locations per county. Okay, so I've actually gone ahead and so I have that service and I've gone ahead and published it already ahead of time just to save some time. So I'm going to log into ArcGIS Online with my organizational account. I want to build a really good map from that service that I just published. So this is my organization. And you can see I've gone ahead and I've published the early voting locations. I called it Meetup because that's what it's for, service. And I wanted to make a really good map. So here's the Meetup map that I created. I'm going to open it in the map viewer. And you can see I've used the symbols that we ship with EMXD. If you want to update those symbols, you can go ahead and you can change that style using ArcGIS Online. If you want to update the base map, you can do that as well. I chose to use the light gray canvas because I thought that really helped pop the locations. But the most important thing that you're going to do in this in the map viewer is configure the pop-up. So if we click here on configuring the pop-up, you can see by default, if I click on there, it's just the default pop-up that kind of ships with the application, or that gets created with the service. Now, if you remember from early voting when we showed you earlier, all those details written out, people don't really want to see a list of attributes. It has to be kind of human readable. So if we go into configure app, if we go into create a custom attribute display, we can go ahead and configure that. So to save time, I've actually kind of copy and pasted that. Poorly, actually. There we go. And so for those of you who haven't tried this before, see these squiggly lines that says full ad? That's actually the field name of that attribute, so that's going to show the full address, city, state, postal code of this application. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to save the pop-up. And when I click on that point, you can see I can see the address, the details, the Dropbox location, exactly as I've requested. I want to make a couple more changes to that. So I want to bold the headers a little bit just to make it easier to read, so people are looking for that information, it pops out a little bit. So again, save it. If I click on the push pin, you can kind of see those edits that I've made. So make sure you save your map, and I've already shared this. Also, make sure you share your service. That's something I forget to do all the time. Since we're going to make this a public application, just make sure you share it with everybody. And I have a tip for you. So once you kind of finish this map, if you want to take advantage of routing, routing is optional. So some people want to configure the application to use routing, some people don't. If you're going to use routing, make sure you come into your item description and click Edit, and just scroll to the very bottom, and you're going to want to click Routing on and off and just resave it. And that's going to make sure that routing has been enabled for this web map, and we can take advantage of that in the configuration of the widget later on. So we've got our map, we've got our service. What about routing? So the next thing we need to do is configure our routing. So I'm just going to jump back to my content. And so it's a public routing service. So we want to make sure that that's secure. So public routing service, if we click on this, I've actually already created that. So I've created a secure connection to my routing service in my organization. And you can see here's that URL to that service here. It's all set up. And there's also the limit usage. So we can't define this for you, but generally what I do is I put it at, there can be 100 requests per 1 second. And when you're setting up your limit usage to use Web App Builder, by default, Web App Builder Developer Edition uses port 3344. So you're going to want to say, hey, allow Web App Builder to use this premium content service. So just wherever you're building the application, just put that machine name. So my machine name is Lindsay Thomas, and it's on the Esri network, so esri.com, and the port number for Web App Builder.